Hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner of YouTube. I'd like to welcome you here and say thank you for joining me, and thank you to everybody who has sent me a lovely comment, or who's subscribed to the channel, and who's left likes for my videos. I know that yesterday's was a bit of a weird one for me, but you know, weird is me, and I learn as I go along. So I hope you're all fine and well. It's a lovely sunny day here, and when the sun's this strong it means that I don't go out in it. My skin has weird reactions to sunlight, and I have to use total sunblock and I still get a weird reaction, and so I tend to lurk until the sun is certainly past its strongest, so it will be late afternoon if I do go out, which I may very well do. It's a bit of a so-and-so, but there we are, that's life. You know, these things happen. So what am I going to do today? Well, I've got this page here where I had, just put the light on, where I'd coloured this with distress ink, and I have this border here, and I thought I'd do something in this area. And as I've been doing hand lettering, no, don't think this is just hand lettering. It's not. But I am going to use something for my focal point, I think, either hand lettering or something else. And I think what I'd like to pop then, I've got a pencil, because I do want to pencil this in before I start doing anything else. I'm very much a pacifist, and always have been. And I believe there are better ways to solve our differences than, well, I think we should use words. And go straight to words, shall we say, to solve our differences, whether it's personal or, you know, international. So peace has long been on my mind, and of course not just peace in terms of, you know, global events and local events and so on, but also in terms of personal life. What I would like my life to be is peaceful, as in at peace with myself as well, as much as anything else. I'm just looking through my piles of pens here for the pen I want. So I am going to pop a peace symbol here, and I make absolutely no apologies for doing this. This isn't your cup of tea and you want to join in with me drawing, well, think of something else you could put here. I mean, it'd be easy enough to turn this circle into a sun or into a giant flower, and I've made a right mess on the edge there, but that's okay, because what I'll do is I'm just going to have a shadow on this side by thickening the lines, and I'll have this feeling that it's inset into the circle. My biggest problem is that I'm not trying not to turn this page around too much. At the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be, and it's in my sketchbook, so it's not so I've got permission to fail or to make mistakes, because that is what a sketchbook is for, and I just have this idea I'd like to do and try out. So, well, it's just a vague idea, actually, a very vague idea. So these may not be perfect. It's not going to be a perfect peace symbol drawn, but it'll be good enough, because don't forget, this is just basically the outline, and you know what I'm going to do. It's going to be colour and it's going to be pattern. You know, as I popped a shadow on this side, I'm going to try and get this drawn like so. I'm going to pop the shadow on the opposite side, so it feels that I have perhaps a bit of a ring around this going on. No. Sometimes you can overwork things and you end up in a pickle, and I think I'm beginning to do that, so I'm going to leave that one. And I'm also going to, I'm going to turn this book now on its side. Now I've done that. Gosh, that's a very squashed, when you look at it from a different angle, you go, that's not very circular, that's quite a squashed oval. But that's okay, because I am going to pop another border around this. I'm doing it quite bold. I'm using a Fudanasuki pen that's been well used and abused, that still has some of its spring in it but not its fine tip anymore. That's been worn away. So I'm getting quite a bold line. Not as bold as if I'd used the Pendle Touch brush, because the one that I've been using is well worn. It's super thick now, with not a lot of give, but perfect for filling spaces in, or if I need that thick bold line. So I've got this here, and what I want are, I think I want flowers, because we've been doing flowers and seed pods this week, and I did want to put some hand lettering in here, but we'll see how we go. It may be that I tuck the word peace in amongst the everything else, or perhaps I could do it. Do I need to do the hand lettering, because that symbol's pretty well known universally, isn't it? So I think I'll leave that as it is. I'm going to change from the Fudanasuki to a, hopefully quickly found, 0305, an 05 micron. If I went to an 03, it would be too fine, I think, to go with this. So I'm going to choose to do some of the flowers that I drew the other day, or a couple of days ago, or 3 days ago, however it is. So I start by drawing a big circle, and I just put 4 dots around it, but the 4th dot here will be hidden underneath. So I haven't drawn that one in, and then I'm going to pop a centre in here. I'm just going to draw it like that, and then these petals I'm going to create into the shapes of hearts. This, drawing this big on such a small page is really uncharacteristic of me. You do know that. So these hearts here would be a lot bigger than these ones, but I'm fine with that. And then I'm going to just pop some leaves in between. And let me get, I've got 2 03s here, so I don't know which one is the worn out one. It's the only way to, I think it's, oh no, this one's drawing a pretty good line. In the short space of time, I think I've had these pens 2 or 3 weeks, and already I haven't used them that much, and already they are beyond much at the moment. Wrecked the nib. Let's pop some leaves in. Actually, these probably aren't that much bigger. It just looks odd because they're tucked behind. So I think what I might do is see if I can enhance that idea that there's perhaps another part of a petal there. And I am going to use shadows with these petals as well. So ones that are to the left and underneath, just to help bring those out. So that's underneath. That's to the left. Bear in mind, I'm working on this at an angle, so up is this way. So, but if I make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. And I also want to pop in here, because this is quite a big space. And I just think it'd be quite nice to pop something in there, and perhaps this as well. And having those just sticking out a little bit does give that idea that the flowers are behind. Yeah, those are very extended petals, but I can live with that. Okay, let's add another flower. Bear in mind, these don't all have to be the same, you know that. So let me put one in here that has perhaps 3 lobes. These aren't going to be heart shaped, they're going to be more, well, leaf shaped I suppose, or petal shaped. But inside of them I can put that heart shape. Perhaps not that one because the top of it would be hidden underneath. And again I'm going to pop some leaves in here. I'll find my 03 pencil, 03 pen even. Just to pop a couple of lines on to show that they're leaves and not petals. And I think that these also need perhaps a little stamen and instead of a circle. In fact, I think I'll do that with these because they're easy enough to alter. Let's turn them into little hearts. There we go, which is fun. Okay, let me work out this way. So let me pop another one in here. I haven't done the shadows around these, have I? To create them like that. So to the left and bottom and top and rightish. So just doing these here with the shadow. I haven't done the ones inside. I think I'll leave those, but I think I might do the leaves as well because it helps them stand out just that little bit. Just adds a bit of, I don't know, to them. Okay, so let's do another 4-petaled version. And this time, when they're tucked behind, you don't need to worry too much about their shape. So this is quite a narrow kind of heart-shaped petal, but that allows for a bigger leaf or a different kind of leaf there. I'm going with that same shape. And where they touch, a different flower, I'm just going to allow them to, if they need to go just a bit bigger, just to close these spaces. I know that having closed spaces in a design isn't always necessarily a good idea, but here it will work because I think I'll colour these these bits in black and really have a really quite graphic design here. So there's my leaves, and I am going to pop a heart shape inside the petals. So that one will fit under the oops. Luckily that line there is a thicker one. And then for these I am going to pop some lines in for the leaves. Like so. And then I'm using the finer pen this time because I've only got a little space there. Could have dug out the 01 that's in the pile beside me, but I haven't. Just make use of that. And it's my 05. So let's have a look at where I go. Apart from neatening this up, because with a pen that's got a nib that stays a consistent width, it's a lot easier to make these adjustments than with one that's flexible. So just bear that one in mind. Let me just do some over here perhaps. Just tuck one behind. Like so. And pop the leaves in. I'll just play with making the lines thicker again to the left and the bottom. Sides mostly to the right, so I'm going to need a bit there though. And then with the leaves. So I'll get the finer pen out. Use that just to tidy up some mucky lines. Oh, this is the one that I think is wrecked. Quality of the line drawn. Rough as anything that's rough. Possibly. Okay. It's only because I'm just so heavy-handed with pens. I've got a set of technical drawing pens, rotary pens, here somewhere, but the ink takes so long to dry. I'm forever smudging. So let's just pop in some, and just perhaps a little bit there just to suggest that it's hidden underneath. So that's quite nice. And perhaps just one more, so I've got 5 of these. Yeah, I know, odd numbers. And perhaps another one that has 3 petals. I don't think I've thought out where I was going to put these petals very well, but I think they'll work. Like so, they do actually, they work quite nicely. So the leaves coming out like that, the vein, and then we need to, if I go any further, I'm just going to add shadow to the parts that I can reach, and then it's just a case of popping these little bits in with a suggestion of where they are. So that'll look okay. Or perhaps I will do a third one as well on this side, because that will balance this other side up a bit. So, which I've realised I haven't done. Let's draw a pencil border in so I know how far I'm going. I think I'll do that before I go any further, because otherwise I end up in a right pickle. And I can hear some of you thinking, Angela's took all that time to draw, to colour the background of a page, and you're drawing on the top of it. It's not going to be considered a finished piece that you can take out. Well, no, because it's a sketchbook. And it didn't take me long to colour this page, but it's something that I find rather lovely, is to draw on top of coloured backgrounds. It instantly gives life to your drawings, I think. Don't get me wrong, I love black and white. I love the graphic nature, the contrast of black pen on white paper. But there's just something so lovely about adding colour. It's like it breaks the austerity of the page, and you've made a start on doing something with it. So it somehow feels easier to make a start or to work on your drawing, your art, when you've done this. So if that's something you find difficult, if you want to draw but you're scared of messing up a page, well, mess it up with colour first. And I don't mean mess it up with colour as in make a mess with colour, but add colour so that you no longer have to worry about making a mess on white. You've got the colour, the background colour there to help with that confidence, or that, it takes away that pressure, I think. Sometimes all it takes to start is just to make a line somewhere, any kind of line, and see where it leads you. I'll show you something I started a bit like that yesterday in a little while. Right, I want to have things curling off from these towards the corners, and you know what pattern or what shapes actually are best for this, in my opinion. Let's get some mookas in here. Because it's one of the Zentangle patterns that I think I use the most, because I do love the organic nature of them, and the fact that you can fit them in anywhere. But for trailing off like this, for creating some patterns and shapes in the corner of my design, it's just perfect for that. So I think I'll leave it at 3 there. Excuse me while I turn my book around. There we go, we'll go there, and we'll do the same over here. Now the pencil lines I've put in are really just guidelines for me to stop me from spilling out over the edge of this page. I want to keep an edge to this. Just pulling my sleeves up a moment, and just going to pop this in like so. Mustn't forget to do all the little bits of adding these little bits of what they call in Zentangle rounding. What I just call is little finishing touches. Turning things so they look like it's made out of, you know, metal that you'd see in, you know, stained glass windows, the leading, which I quite like. I think I'll have a little one perhaps here, because 2 on their own doesn't seem right. I've got 3. I almost feel I need something over this side as well, which is fine. I can do that. That's a bit thicker than I wanted, but that's fine. Just fill that in there with black and that there. And then, you know, I'm not a fan of even numbers clustered together. So let's add a 4th one, just a little one under there, and see what that looks like. Turn it around the other way so I can have a good look. I'll tilt it up so it looks on the flat for you. There we go, because I've got my camera positioned so perhaps you see more of what my pen's doing and less of my hand hiding the pen. But that looks okay. It's looking okay, it's looking okay, it's looking okay. All right then. So I could leave it just like this, and part of me is so tempted to, kid you not. But I think what I'm going to do is round here, I'm going to put, let me have a look. You just pop a rough pencil line in, showing where I want these extra bits to go. The power of the pencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of these little flowers. So I'm starting with 4 little lines arranged, and then I'm going to draw my petals from somewhere in between them, sort of like I'm imagining a circle-ish around here, and I'm just drawing the petals out. And if they're not, oops, all the same size, it's not important, because you know they will look like flowers no matter what. So that's quite nice. Let's do one there. And you can make them as big or as little as you like. I think I'll fill this gap in, and then I'll come back and see if I want to add more into spaces. I think I do want to add one here, because it just feels a bit of an awkward space here where there's nothing. And this feels a bit awkward here, so perhaps we'll have one that tucks in quite a bit behind the others, and I can draw it smaller as well. So that looks, perhaps I need to add a couple more. So let me have a look. There we go. That'll add a little one there and a little one here. And I'm just putting 3 lines there now so I can get 3 lobes in. That actually works quite nicely. I like that. Because flowers are always symbolic to me of peace. You know, flower power, 1960s. I remember it even though I was but a child. So like the late 1960s, I would have been 5, 6 years old. And I certainly remember a lot of the imagery that was around and things that people were talking about. I gather I was old for my age. Yeah, I wasn't even 6 years old, and there were the moon landings, and I don't know if I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because it's a good one. And we hadn't long moved down to Wales, and we'd had delivery of a colour television set, which my mother had won by entering a competition on the back of a cornflakes packet, Kellogg's cornflakes, because my older sister nagged her to enter, and she actually won. And the value of the colour television, if I remember right, was £800, which doesn't sound a lot in today's value perhaps, but back then that was probably the best part of a year's wage, if not a year's wage. And so it was known we were moving down to Wales, so rather than have it delivered to where we were living in Cheshire, which is an English county just over the border of North Wales, we moved to South Wales. She arranged to have it delivered once we'd moved and had settled in, so it wouldn't break in transit. If it was broken by the people delivering it, then that wasn't a big thing or a problem then, was it? So we had this colour television. We were the first people in the street I lived, or in the area, you know, sort of like the area where we knew people, to have a colour television. And so when the moon landings were going to happen, you know, the Apollo 11, the first men on the moon, you know, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went on the moon. He had Michael Collins in the orbiter going around the moon. Yes, I know these things, I just know it. And I'm 5 years old, and it was sort of like at a sensible time of day in America, but over here in the UK it was like the middle of the night, and I nagged and nagged to be woken up and to be allowed to watch the moon landings, because I knew how important it was, and I had a love of science and space and all kinds of things even at that young age. You know, it wasn't long after that I had adult library tickets. I had to have special permission to have adult books out. So not those kind of adult books, but, you know, books from the adult section in the library. So, you know, serious books on things rather than, you know, kids' books on ancient Egypt or dinosaurs. I could access the adult version of these books. Yeah, I know. Precocious little so-and-so. But thirst for knowledge, I think, is the better way of saying it. And we've got a bright light just over my, oh, look at that sunshine. Let me get rid of the sunshine. So, not only did I nag to be allowed right, okay, let me think about this a moment. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do over here. We're going to have some seed pods. And I'm going to move my book around a moment while I do this as well. So it's easier for me to rest my hand. So because we had a colour television, everybody who was living in our street at the time was invited to come and watch the moon landings in colour. And where we were living was a brand new housing estate that, well, you know, it was brand new. So what more do I need to say? So there weren't many people there. We were one of the very first families to move in. So all of these people turned up, you know, late at night. I was woken up, went downstairs. And everybody was so disappointed when the pictures came in from the moon, because they were in black and white and they could have stayed in their own homes to watch it. But I can remember saying, sort of like fairly quietly, but was heard, you thought these pictures would be in colour. I knew they'd be in black and white, because I knew, for some reason I knew they only had a black and white, you know, sort of like video camera there. We had still photographs in colour, but not, you know, video cameras, live feed ones. And but I remember the awe. I don't remember everything about the landing and so on, but I remember the awe and wonder that I felt watching it, and the amazement that this was something, you know, really, really important and significant, and it was. And I followed every single moon landing after that. Although I don't remember much about it, but other than that sense of awe and wonder. And I still get that sense of awe and wonder even to now, whenever I watch something like, I haven't watched one for a while, but you often get live streaming of, you know, Elon Musk's projects to get satellites into space. Starlink, you know, SpaceX is what I was looking for, and they're amazing to watch. I don't always get to watch them. I sometimes forget that they're happening, or I don't get the notifications always. But if I do, and I'm able to, I'll always have a look, and there's always that feeling of wonder and amazement. Even now, it's like some things never change. Still that childlike wonder and curiosity in me. So, putting clusters of seed pods here. So what comes to mind is there's an old, it was Tears for Fears, I think. Is it Tears for Fears? Song, Sowing the Seeds of Love. And I think that's the kind of idea I'd like to get here. Perhaps it's too subtle a message, but no hand lettering allowed today, I think. But it's almost like I would love to. These might be a bit lopsided because of how I'm drawing them, but they are what they are. So I've got a nice cluster over here that I think feels fairly balanced. Over here, and I'll pop a leaf there and perhaps a leaf there, because you've got to have leaves on things, haven't you? They have that little bit of interest. So yeah, so if I tried to add any more here, I think it would feel a bit clumsy. I've got a gap there where perhaps I could get one in, but it would go too far. I could tuck it behind. Actually, I might do that. Just tuck one behind. So that would look quite cool. And perhaps we'll have one here that just doesn't have that collar. Well, it does now. Like so. We won't see its stem. I could try and put a stem in for it, but it would mostly be hidden by this one, so I'll leave that there. So that looks quite good. And what I'm going to start to do is, what do I do in these spaces in between? Well, let's tackle the other corner first. Excuse me. I know how dizziness inducing somebody turning all of these things around is. Let's very quickly add a couple more here. I'm not going to spend time with you adding thickness to these lines, because I think we know how to do that now, and I haven't done it with these simple flowers, so perhaps sometimes it will work out just as it is. And Okay. Ooh, that's going to be a wide one, isn't it? That's fine too. Like so. And perhaps this one can have lines going around this way. You can see I'm bending these lines as well. I always think of green as a colour that represents peace and harmony. And things that grow as well, isn't it? And that's what we need, I think, is for peace to grow. Okay, so we have a look. I'm not trying to do anything too fancy or schmancy with these seed pods. I just want to get them in, I think. We'll have one here that's kind of text behind. So we've got a stem coming from this one here. Let's pop that on. And then I've got a leaf over one. Simply because that one really could have done with being drawn just about first if I wanted it at the front, but I'm happy to have it at the back. And that means I'll be happy just to tuck one in here as well. No stem with this one. I've got this, and I didn't put a leaf on that side, so I'll just pop one on that side. So there we go. Oh, and let's just pop one on there. That feels better. So I've now got these areas in between. If I move this down a bit. So I've got this area, and this area. Big X. Makes an X, doesn't it? Like a kiss. Let me just adjust this a little bit. There we go. We got a better view now. So let's have a look at what we can do with that. I think these areas may call for perhaps some more muka. I think some more muka might work quite nicely around here. I'll do up here first. I want to turn my book around before I do anywhere else. I'm not sure whether I can get, there's no comfortable way that I can get unless I draw behind, and that would work. Sometimes I forget about this drawing behind thing. As in planning to, it just seems to happen. So that feels quite nice, and perhaps I can add a smaller one in there just to fill that space there quite nicely. Let's go back and just do some of these finishing touches. Got finishing touches, haven't you? So almost there and there. So that looks a bit better. Just a bit. So let me go to this one on the other side. There we go. And let's have a look here. So perhaps I can do this going behind thing again. That sort of works, doesn't it? It's okay. It'll be fine. And then that means that I can take the opportunity to have perhaps one growing back this way and kissing that one above. There's things that kiss are good. Peace, love and understanding. And then over here, I can get a muka like this. Or frond. I need something small here, so I think I can just fit a little baby one in there, just to fill that gap. It was a bit too big of a gap for me to be comfortable with. So that's quite nice. Though I could happily have one that perhaps comes out here and down and round, and is very exuberant and show-offish. And if I put the stem in like that, you can follow it around. It makes sense that way. So I've got a lot less space in between. I think I want to add a couple more mucas here, but what I'm thinking of doing over here, oh look, I didn't pop these in. I seem to remember getting my pen out ready to do this, but in reality I just didn't. Perhaps I can have another muca just in here to fill this space that little bit, because it'll make it an easier area to work from then. Because what I think I'd like is some of these teardrop shaped things. Is it flux they call it in Zentangle? Because I think they would fill this area in quite nicely with plenty of foliage, which I think is a nice way of filling spaces like this. So I've got a space here, but I think what I'll also, yeah, shall I? Because my mind just went to that lovely tangle pattern, or fragment motif called Moonberry. Which is essentially a berry, or a circle shape with a little star in that's been auraed. They look a bit like blueberries. So I think they'd look quite nice as clustered here as well. Reminds me, I haven't had blueberries for quite a while. And perhaps I'd tuck one in here, or perhaps I will tuck one in here, because I was thinking about putting a flux in there, but putting a flux in here wouldn't feel right. One on its own just wouldn't feel quite right. So that looks quite nice. Okay, so let me have a look here. So I can actually grow flux from here quite nicely, and from here. And again here, and perhaps going up here. So that'll be quite nice, just like that. And perhaps if I can pop in a couple here. I can adjust the shape because I'm going to fill in a lot of these little gaps with black afterwards. So again, I've got that there. I'm just adjusting my paper so I've got a better angle to draw from. These sketchbooks do make it a little bit more difficult. So let's have a look. Let's start popping some moonberries in. So these little stars can go anywhere within the circle, and they just give a different kind of feeling to them. Off centre, I often think is best, because it then suggests there's a roundness perhaps. And there's also this whimsical sort of like, we've got a pile of them going on, and I'm quite happy with piles of cute things. And who doesn't love a pile of blueberries? Somebody's going to drop in the comments, oh, I don't because I'm allergic. If you're not allergic and you genuinely don't like them, who doesn't love a blueberry? I do. I haven't had any for a while. They're pretty expensive out of season here in the UK. But it won't be long before it's blueberry season again. You know, the ones that we have are shipped in from far away, which isn't very good for the environment. Okay, so I think I'm going to start popping blueberries in here first, because I had an awkward gap there, but one that a blueberry would fit in quite nicely. I am going to add some flex though, because it does, oh, there's my printer deciding to turn itself off to sleep, or send itself to sleep. I was scanning in some of my lettering projects because I want to try and work on them digitally as well. So, okay, let's get some more moonberries in. They do fit nicely. Circular motifs like seeds and so on, there's always space. They always fill a space nicely because you can just overlap them and sort of like put them one on top of another, and they always look cute as anything. Well, I think so. But you can adjust how much of it you have showing as well, like here. And then the last one will be this one. And I've got quite a bit more showing than I did in the previous ones, because if I'd thought ahead, I could have made some of these bigger. Okay, we've got, and I think I'm going to need to pop one here because I've got quite a big enough space here for one to sneak in behind those seed pods. So there's that done. So just the last section at the top here to be done. So let's have a look at where can I put flexes in. Well, I'm going to start with flexes here. I think the plural of flex is flex. One flex, two flex. Flexes I don't think is a thing, except when I'm tangling or drawing and wittering. So that's quite nice. I think I might pop some flex over here as well, because flex really does fill spaces up quite quickly as well. And your moonberry does, but I quite like having flex here. The way they curl together actually gives quite nice holders for moonberries. If you draw them carefully enough, you can have them sort of like coming up and creating a little snuggly space for moonberries and the like, which I think is lovely. But then I'm easily pleased by lots of things. So perhaps just a couple more going from this one, just to finish that space off. Like so, and perhaps one here, because that's an awkward little gap there. It feels awkward. And even if I put a moonberry in there, it would still feel awkward to me. So here we've got almost like a U shape formed by these. It's a frilly U shape. Perfect place to pop a moonberry in. Another one up here. And then perhaps I'll add some flux over here, just to create a nice edge there around these. If I've made a mess of my lines, I just go back and just thicken that line in. It won't be noticeable in the grand scheme of things. And then we can add a couple more moonberries in here. So that there is my drawing finished. I said I wanted to fill in gaps with black. I think I do, because it will help to bring out the smaller elements perhaps, and to create a more cohesive background. It also helps this green colour to show up even more. And so much for using this space, this page, for actually journaling or writing on. It's fine. Keep saying everything is what it is, and sometimes this is how sketchbook pages go. You don't have to fill a sketchbook page with just one thing. You can split it up, especially if you've got a larger sketchbook. A big page can be very overwhelming. So split it up into smaller sections. Make use. Do you know what? I'm going to make that little bit there disappear because I don't know what it is, but it's not making any sense to me. In the same way, I might just make that just disappear there. So it was looking at really awkward, as if the shapes of those big petals weren't awkward enough. But if I show this, you can see that here I've put black behind these smaller flowers, and it just helps them to stand out as individual flowers, although they're all together in a group. And yet I know I could have coloured the background in with a dark green or some such, but I still like the graphic nature of black. And if I do add colour to this, I'm not saying I'm going to, because green is a funny colour to mix other colours with. It depends what colours you're going to use. You know, sort of like pinks and purples and oranges, it's just going to make mud. So I think that I may just leave it monochrome, or perhaps use some greens to add shadow here and there. I'm looking at where around this central area I want to add some black, so I'm going to keep the spaces between the mucas mostly the same as the background, and not fill them in with black, in other words, groping for words. But I am going to make sure that I deal with little spaces and spaces that are perhaps a little bit on the awkward side. So that one I can turn into a mini flux there. That's a little bit on the smaller side and awkward. This one is a bit awkward there, so I think I'll do that. That one definitely can be done with black. This one's okay. This one here I think I'll do with black, because even though I've got moonberries around, it's almost like they need some space or some black between them. It's a little one, and that also is a little one. This one here I'm going to leave open. A little bit there. I think this one I'll do with black. Leave the ones above as they are, or natural. Well, not the natural colour of the sketchbook page, because I'm going to colour that one in, because even though there could be a moonberry behind there, I just think it will feel more comfortable if I put black there to separate those. That's a little area there, so I'm going to pop some black in there. Got some here, and I think I will between these seed pods actually here. So I might go back and look at the other clutch of seed pods. The pottery. Well, you have a nursery for plants, you can have a pottery for pods, can't you? This one needs a bit more roundness to that little blueberry there, or moonberry. This is a smallish space, so I am going to just colour that in black, because it would feel more in keeping with the pattern, the design. This one's a little bit on the small side, so we'll add some there. We have a look over here, so we've got this here, this here. I'm just scanning round to where I've come from, see if there's no, I'm fine. Maybe not all the seed, I did all the seed pods here, but perhaps I don't need to here, because there's plenty of bigger spaces around them. So that'll be fine. Just tidying up where I've not added black clearly. And I think that's it. I think I'm done. There are things I can do. It's like I've got these big areas around the mucas, and those I could add a darker green to. I'm not going to do that because I'm nearly up to an hour with this. But the one thing I will do before I leave you is I am going to pop my initials in there, and just say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you'll give it a go and try drawing along with me. I'm going to think about what I'm going to do with these spaces. I'm tempted to fill them with something like little spirals or another pattern or colour, because it's fairly pale here. The thing about distress inks, sometimes they look really dark, but when you add water to them, or when you colour them with water-soluble media, there's so little ink there that when you mix it in with a colour, it doesn't matter. And here it's a very pale colour. Around the edge, I don't think I would, but I'll think about that. Or perhaps I'll use gold or something like that, you know, gold in these. That is a recipe for disaster, Angela, and you know it. I do. I'll see. So I don't know what I'm going to do about those. I could use fine liner pens to add some pattern and texture. I could use them in greens and browns, because browns would be quite nice. No, not really. But let me know. Leave a comment if you've got any ideas what I could do with these in terms of colour and shadow, or what you think would be a good idea. If your idea really gels with me, who knows, you might see it in the next video, or I'll show you it when it's finished. Oh no, that would be mean of me to do it and then show you the finished results, wouldn't it? It would. It would. So perhaps I'll do it in a video and add the colour and shadow that way. But for now, take care of yourselves. Enjoy your day and find time to be creative. Have a go at drawing something like this. All you need is a pen and a piece of paper and just the willingness to have a go. And nobody need ever see it except for yourself. Look on it as creating art for yourself, for the enjoyment of making line on paper, of having no expectations other than I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing, and giving yourself a permission to make a mistake. I mean, look what happened here. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not really sticking out like a sore thumb anymore like it did on its own. And by the time I've decided what I'm going to do with these rings and this big space in the middle, then I'll see. Part of me wants to leave this pretty much in the background, or towards the back, and have this as the focal point. So this needs something doing to it. Perhaps these just need shadows, and I will leave them green, I think. But let me know what you think I should do, or what I could do. Not should, could. And who knows? We'll have a look. So take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye.